Morning, Glory America, Bonjour, hi Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt and live in the ReliefFactor.com studio, joined by Akash Chougule. Akash is the Vice President of Americans for Prosperity. AFP is one of our great sponsors. And you've seen Akash a lot this week. He's been up at every hour because I'm introducing AFP to the entire audience this week. Akash, this is our big audience. This is the middle of morning drive in the East and in the Middle West. Tell people what you think this election is about.
This election is about ending this inflation crisis and securing the border. Those are the top two issues facing the American people. President Biden, Vice President Harris have failed miserably, and they have no plan to turn things around. We at AFP have very simple plans that conservatives should rally around, get behind, and demand that their lawmakers not only campaign on, but deliver on to secure the border, rein in the reckless spending, build on the Trump tax cuts, and build a future of prosperity and security for the American people.
Now, when Kamala Harris goes out, she does not talk about the economy. She did a rally last night in Atlanta, Georgia. Nothing about the economy. How can anyone expect to win when you don't have a message on the economy, Akash?
I mean, we know what she's doing, Hugh. She's relying on the power of the sort of Obama coalition, help from the mainstream media, and sort of driving on social issues, the Dobbs and democracy playbook that they use, frankly, successfully in certain races in 2022. She's basically banking on that to get her over the top in 2024. But the fact of the matter is that the economy and the border are the top two issues facing the American people. And if Republicans stay focused on those issues, they will win up and down the ballot because they have answers, and Kamala Harris and the Democrats don't.
The right track, wrong track numbers are as bad as they have been for an incumbent as far as I can remember. Do those change much in reaction to things like the Fed decision today, whether or not it's to cut rates or to signal a rate cut? I just don't think they change much.
No, and the reason they don't change much, Hugh, is that people don't look at these things as a snapshot in time, right? They're assessing the Biden presidency from the start to where we are today. And where we are today is that prices are up 20% since President Biden took office. And he and his allies in Congress and Vice President Harris are the ones to blame. They spent $6 trillion above baseline. You'll remember when they passed the American Rescue Plan Act, and I'm using air quotes, in March of 2021, Kamala Harris paraded around the country saying help is on the way. Help was on the way in the form of $5 gas and empty grocery store shelves. Now, again, the message here is for conservatives, it's for Republicans. Stay focused on the issues that matter most and be serious about getting this problem in check. And the way we get it in check is with this fiscal cliff opportunity next year, using the debt limit debate to push for real spending cuts and extending and building on the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
I want to play for you the first official Trump campaign message after Kamala Harris ascended and the coup occurred on the Democratic Party side. This is Donald Trump yesterday.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
This is America's border czar, and she's failed us. Under Harris, over 10 million illegally here. 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl. Brutal migrant crimes. And ISIS now here.
Do you have any plans to visit the border? You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
Kamala Harris, failed, weak, dangerously liberal.
Failed, weak, dangerously liberal. Akash, what do you make of that tagline? Because it seems like the core of the message. Failed, weak, dangerously liberal.
I think it's accurate, and I think they've got to define Kamala Harris before she gets a chance to define herself. And they need only look at her previous statements, bills she's co-sponsored and sponsored, positions she took while running for president. She is far, far to the left of the vast majority of Americans. The border has been an abject failure under her watch. But again, Americans want solutions, Hugh. And President Trump obviously has been on this border wall for many years. Physical barriers are part of the solution to the border, but they are far from the only thing it's going to take to solve this. We need more personnel, more technology on the border. We need to reform the immigration system in general. But if Americans don't hear solutions and real workable solutions from Republicans on the border, then they're going to buy what the media is selling them on Kamala Harris. And so I think defining her with her own words is a great first step. But then it's going to have to be about solutions. And AFP is doing that at securebordersecureamerica.com. Securebordersecureamerica.com has a simple solution to get the border under control so we can move this country forward safely.
Do you think that the attempt to blame Republicans for not passing the Democratic plan on immigration has traction, Akash? I don't. I know James Lankford. He did the best job he could. He brought back the best deal, and the Republican conference rejected it because it didn't have a wall. It's got to have a wall. Do you think it works when Kamala Harris blames Donald Trump for the impasse over immigration?
Look, I think that was a tough spot for Republicans. I frankly think some of the blame is fair. I think Senator Lankford did a very commendable job constructing that bill, but whether that works in a presidential election cycle, I honestly am skeptical. Hugh, the American people just were not paying that close of attention at that point in time. They don't know the details of that bill that well. Should that bill come up next year, again, I think it probably merits some serious consideration. But to contrast Vice President Harris's record on the border to Trump's, I just don't think the American people, despite how much the media is going to try to make that a fair comparison, they're not going to take Kamala Harris seriously on that. And frankly, I think the ball is in Republicans' court to continue to go on offense against her with solutions, as I mentioned, on border security and inflation and all this, because her track record and her words speak for themselves. She has no answers. All she has is open borders, wealth redistribution, and more of the same failed left-wing policies.
Akash, when you and I get together in D.C., we're getting together in one of the most privileged parts of the country, where the income is far ahead of the median income in the United States. And everybody goes to lunch, and everybody goes to dinner, and everybody goes to Delray, or they go off to Montgomery County. Do you think that Washington, D.C. has any idea of the economic pain in the country?
I do, but only because their jobs depend on being responsive to it at some level. And I think that's kind of at least the case for members of Congress and some of their staff. Do I think the fat cats and the public sector unions of the federal bureaucracy have any clue? No, absolutely not. Not only are they overpaid, Hugh, they haven't been working in person. They've been working remotely. They don't show up. I think that's a major problem in Washington, D.C. And I think it gets to one of the cruxes of the conservative cause that we cannot abandon, which is the cause for limited government, getting the administrative state under control, getting government out of our lives. That is going to be the best way to make people's lives better. The best way to embrace and expand the conservative cause is to take power out of Washington, D.C. We're never going to be able to.
Last question, Akash. Biden and Harris are both campaigning on fundamentally destroying the Supreme Court's authority and its constitutional separation of power. Does that work, or does that repel Americans who kind of like the system we have?
It repels Americans, Hugh. This is the judicial branch is the last fair and equal, nonpartisan, non-political branch. The American people like that. They appreciate it. Making them subject to the whim of the voters is the exact opposite of what the founders and the framers intended. I think the American people understand that this is just a ploy to get the far left enthused for November, and that's all.
Akash Chougule, good to talk to you. We will continue to update as the campaign progresses, especially during the Democratic National Convention. Visit securebordersecureamerica.com to get the facts on the border czar that wasn't, Kamala Harris, to get the facts on the border crisis that is and goes on into the far future at securebordersecureamerica.com.